Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. A small heads up, you were probably listening to a few noises in the background. Sadly, I cannot fix that at the moment. We have people doing a lot of renovations at my home right now. I had either two options. Option one was to record this while this is all going on, or option two was to wait until the very next day. Let me know in the comments if you're fine with this amount of noise while me doing this recording. But yeah, this will be happening for both this video and my next tech report, which is going to be a lengthy one because it does revolve around Legacy of Destruction as well as a few locals that I went to in the past week. But yeah, that's the small disclaimer. Without further ado, let's begin with the video. Greetings, duelists. Welcome to another video. So, as of yesterday on the 21st, we had revealed two more Centur-ION cards. I think we were already slated for Centur-ION support because we did receive support for Mementos, which was the last video that I made, and we also had support for Valmonica. I will make a video dedicated to Valmonica in the future because after facing the deck, I have a very more acute understanding on how it works, and seeing the other new support cards just opened my insight on how the deck functions a lot more than it did ever before. But going back to Centur-ION, we got one new spell card and one new monster. I'll start with the spell card first, and then I'll start with the monster because the monster will lead up to what the spell card does. So this is Emblema Atonement. That makes it our second Emblema card, the first one being Emblema Oath. And this card reads, banish once face-up Centur-ION monster card from your spell and trap zone, then target one card your opponent controls, banish it. If this card is destroyed or banished by your opponent's activated card effect, you can place two Centur-ION monsters with different names from your hand, deck, or graveyard and their banishment zone to your spell and trap zones as continuous traps. I don't like this card, and I'll explain why. So essentially what this card is a Centur-ION version of Sprite Smashers. Basically, you're banishing a card to just target another card. The first thing I don't like about this card is that it specifically asks for a Centur-ION monster card in your face-up spell and trap zone. With the existence of Centur-ION Auxila, this is circumvented because during the end phase, they can just retrieve Centur-ION cards from banished. However, that does not sell me on this card because it specifically asks for a monster. It has to be in the spell and trap zone. So it already requires proper setup, either by Emblema Oath, by stand-up Centur-ION, or by Centur-ION Trudea. That is not that great. When Centur-ION already struggles by going second, they do need strong going second options. However, a card that just requires setup means that your opponent has already let you resolve a monster or resolve a card in order to be placed in the spell and trap zone. The other thing I don't like about Atonement is that it is a cost to banish. So after you banish your Centur-ION, you have to target a card. That already makes it worse than actually Sprite Smashers. I understand the part where it can target any card, but the fact that it targets and you banish your Centur-ION as a cost makes the viability of this card just very niche. Yeah, your opponent can play around this card, and you cannot get rid of very hard cards throughout, untargetable monsters, etc. the last thing about this card is that the set effect is not going to be resolving as much as you think. The only way you can see this card resolving that way is if you play Centurion as like a stun deck strategy instead of like a hyper synchro deck. So yeah, I really just don't like this card. The other thing is that it's an Emblema card. Uh, Emblema Oath is like the best Centurion card, but the biggest issue with this card is that it's an Emblema card, and there are no ways to search these two cards, especially with what the new Centurion monster does. When we'll get to her, you'll understand that it's just not going to be as useful in the long run. But that's it for Emblema Atonement. Let's go to Centurion Atri. This is a level 4 Dark Dragon Tuner monster with 18 attack, 14 defense. And this card reads, if this card is normal special summon, and you have an Emblema card, and a Centurion card in your graveyard, you can draw one card. Also, you can not special summon Centurion Atri for the rest of the turn. If this card is using a synchro material, you can treat it as a non-tuner. During the main phase, if this card is a continuous trap, you have the spawn effect just like the other Centurions. So, they finally gave Centurion another tuner. That is the biggest selling point behind this card. The issue that Centurions had in the past before the set release was we didn't have enough ways to get to tuner monsters besides Primera, and just relying on Primera is a really big weakness of the deck, because let's say for example you're facing like Runic as stun and they just banish all your Primeras, or you just play against like a strategy that just dedicates themselves at like in like proper spot removal, and your Centurion Primera is out of rotation, then you're just losing on the spot because you didn't have another tuner into rotation. So this fixes that issue. Having this treated as a non-tuner is not as helpful, but it does help in the sense where if you get Primera into rotation and then you go from Primera to Trudea and then Trudea to this card, you can just perform your synchro summon without worrying that you have just tuners. That being said, I would have wished if they would have just flipped and reversed this onto Centurion Gargoyle. Just give Gargoyle the ability to be treated as a tuner instead of having R3 treated as the non-tuner. We have enough non-tuners in the deck, especially if you play like Wake Up Centurion. They just gives you a token. So this card, this effect being in here is really not that helpful. Relying on an Emblema card and a Centurion card to draw a card is a lot of setup. Like the only real Emblema that we were playing was Emblema Oath. Emblema Atonement is not like a stable 3 of it in this deck. I already dislike this card. So just relying on playing this card in order to just circumvent what R3 does really isn't that helpful at all. Overall, I think out of all the new support that we got from Valiant Smashers in Infinite Forbidden, Centurion has the weakest. These two cards are not that good. Centurion R3 is going to be a staple in this deck, mainly because it is another tuner, and this deck was lacking a lot of tuners. I will say this, despite how mediocre the new support for Centurion is, I think Centurion is in a really good spot after Infinite Forbidden, and that's because of the Whitewood cards. I think the Whitewood archetype benefited for Centurion way more than their actual support, and even like their second whale support in Legacy of Destruction. Because this deck has searchable tuners, they're recurable tuners as well. They gave them other ways to synchro summon. They also gave them really powerful synchros, like that can serve either as disruption or tutoring. Like overall, I think Centurion is in a really good spot after Infinite Forbidden is released, just not because of their new support. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.